I posted a video talking about this DL-22E. I call it the DL-22E. It's actually a working replica of a DL-44 blaster. This is built with parts from JMac Customs and Kanto Arms. Now, it's been through a couple different changes since I initially got it and since the initial video. So I thought I'd do an update video, not only talking about the different parts that were added, which I talked about in a previous video, but also give you a range day and show you how this shoots. So the last video I posted, I got a lot of comments. Some of them, some love this firearm, some hate this firearm, and some are just confused. So I wanted to take some time today and talk about why someone might want a DL-22 or a DL-44 style blaster. So quick overview if you haven't seen the last video. Starting from the rear, this is an SBR, so it's a short barreled rifle, and I do have a JMac Customs armbar and folding buttstock. So the cool thing about this is it folds completely out of the way, so it gives you that original DL-44 look that you saw with Han Solo in the Star Wars films. So it looks really cool, and it works well like this. Now, you can buy this from Kanto Arms. You can buy it complete as a pistol, and not have to mess with any of the NFA laws. But I SBR'd this lower receiver, and now I have a stock on it, and it's just that much more fun. So there you have it as a pistol, and then you can, now it's a rifle. So you can really get on this bad boy and chuck some rounds downrange. Now as we go forward here, it does have a JMac Customs receiver. I think the JMac Customs logo, for whatever reason, looks really good with this setup. It gives me those Blast Tech futuristic vibes. I don't know what it is, but it goes well together. Now this grip here is made by Kanto Arms. It's aluminum and real wood, and it has these brass inserts, really completing the look. This is the most comfortable grip you're gonna find for a DL-44 style build that uses real wood and actually looks the part. I've seen some that are wood and they kind of look a little funky. They got some weird grip angles. This one's super comfortable and just looks great. I mean, look at that wood they have on the side. I absolutely love this grip, and it plays a huge role in the overall look, fit, function, and feel of this particular build. Now, on the inside here, it is CMMG parts. It's got a CMMG dedicated 22 long rifle barrel and bolt, which is really the key to reliability. I've seen a lot of 22 long rifle adapters and conversions, and they're not as reliable from what I've seen. This thing runs great, close to 100% reliability, which is really hard to find with rimfire ammunition. Up top here, I have an inexpensive CV Life 30mm red dot. I picked this up off of Amazon, and typically I don't waste my time and money on cheap red dot optics, but for a 22 long rifle, this actually works great. It has 5 different brightness settings in both red and green, adjustable via this side rheostat, and then it has your standard elevation and windage adjustment. So works great for this build. You can run it as a red or green dot, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. This riser here is a primary arms 30mm low mount, and again, works great. Light here is a Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount 1, just running that push button at the rear to activate it, and it's mounted using a Haley Strategic Thorntail mount, and it just gives you the option of having illumination if you're shooting in low light, or maybe you're hunting some critters out there at nighttime and you need a little bit of light to see what you're shooting at. The magazine here, this particular one, is a Black Dog Machine 10-round magazine. These are what is recommended by Kanto Arms, and this thing runs great. This setup with the CMMG bolt carrier and barrel will run on any CMMG pattern magazine. This one runs particularly well, the black dog, and it also looks the part, that shorter magazine. Now, a question I got on my last video from a lot of you is, why is this magazine only 10 rounds for the size that it is? The reason is because it has to fit a standard AR magwell. So that's your overall size there. And then it's, for the most part, 22 long rifles are single stack magazines. Yeah, there's maybe a little bit of offset, but they're single stack. So when you take into consideration the spring, the follower, and all the other components of this magazine, it doesn't leave much room for rounds. So this one is only a 10 rounder, but I do have some higher capacity magazines that I'll be shooting today that you could use as well. There's a ton of different options. As long as it's CMMG pattern, that magazine will work with this particular setup. This does have last round bolt hold open, but when you remove that magazine, the bolt does go forward. That is pretty standard amongst 22 long rifle ARs. Now on the front end here, you're going to see another key component to this build that is available through Canto Arms, and that is their barrel nut, barrel shroud, and muzzle device. All right, so this allows you to take that CMMG barrel and make it look like the barrel on a DL-44. So this particular muzzle device here, very, very reminiscent of the DL-44 muzzle device you see Han Solo have in the films. And this thing, really cool. I actually have a few of these. Some of them I have mounted on some 5.56 rifles, and I'm up to about 300 rounds, and it's been able to handle 5.56 no problem. So obviously 22 long rifle, this thing will last forever. You can remove this muzzle device if you wanted to run a suppressor. I have ran the suppress. It runs great suppressed, and that's what the end of the threads look like. So if you wanted to suppress it, very easy to do so. This muzzle device does sleeve over a portion of the barrel, making it look a bit shorter than it actually is. So overall, that's the setup. Now, who would want something like this? Why something like this? Well, this is the key demographic for this particular firearm is going to be obviously Star Wars fans. If you are a fan of Star Wars and you want to bring something fun out to the range, then this DL-44 or 22E, whatever you want to call it, is where it's at. I mean, 22 long rifle, obviously the most affordable as far as ammunition goes, and it is a ton of fun. It's very reliable. And although 22 is less expensive, you end up shooting a lot more of it, because as you're going to see in today's range video, you can blast through a mag very quickly with this setup here. Now, a couple other things to talk about, answer some questions from my previous vehicle. One of them was, why 22? Why not 9mm or 223 or 300 blackout? And the reason is because if you want to maintain this look of the DL-44 and you want to keep it in that pistol form, you cannot run a buffer tube. So all of those calibers require a buffer tube. Now, there are ways you could modify a standard AR bolt and make it work without a buffer tube, but it's only going to be single shot bolt action. It won't actually cycle semi-automatic. So if you want a semi-automatic pistol that looks like a DL-44, then 22 long rifle is where it's at. There's a lot of fun things you can do with that. And some of you are going to say, well, what about the SIG MCX and the Brownells BRN 180? Those don't have buffer tubes in the rear. Well, those actually have proprietary receivers that retain the gas system and the springs and recoil rod that allow it to work in that fashion, and that's not going to work in this setup. So you could make a DL-44-esque build using that, but it's not going to look like this. Now, originally, the DL-44 was made off of a broom handle Mauser, and unless you have a bunch of money burning a hole in your pocket, you're probably not going to be forking out the funds to get a broom handle Mauser and then convert it to make it a functional replica of what you see in the film. So this really is your best option If you're a Star Wars fan and you want something that looks like the DL-44 to take out to the range, have a good time, then look no further. And if you want to check these out, make sure you head on over to the Kanto Arms website. So let's grab some magazines, head out to the range, and fire some rounds to the DL-22E. So this DL-22E, it is SBR'd. It does have that fold-away stock, but it can be fired as a pistol or a rifle. So I built this one up using the JMac custom lower receiver. Kanto Arms does make their own receiver now. It has some really cool markings on there. But I really like the way that the JMac logo looks on here. It looks very, very Blast Tech for some reason in my mind. But I'm going to start off with the 10-round magazine here. This one is the Black Dog Machine mag. Works really good. It's been very reliable. And let's try some rounds just as a pistol. All right, very controllable. Now, you could run it the two-handed around the grip if you want. That works fine. All right, or get a little more aggressive with it and get my thumb right around the top here, and I can shoot it like a pistol in this fashion as well. All right, it does have bolt hold open, which is a nice feature. Let you know it's empty. And let's go ahead and fire it up with the CMMG 22 mag. Now you notice when I remove that magazine, the bolt went forward. The bolt does not stay locked to the rear on these, but it does lock back and let you know it needs some more food. Let's go ahead and put it in rifle form. Again, the JMac arm bar with the ABFB folding buttstock really goes well with this setup here. And believe it or not, as odd as this may look, this is very comfortable to shoot. I mean, it's 22, so there's not much is required as far as controlling and driving the firearm, but very comfortable to get on here and get some rounds off. So let's see how he feels. So you can really blast through some rounds really quick with this. 22, very inexpensive. The problem is you got something like this, it's so fun and quick to shoot, you end up blasting through a lot of rounds. In my opinion though, that's a good thing. All right, so let's run a build drill with the DL-22E and see how it looks. Disregard this first beep. Let me get set here. All right, so 6 rounds, 70 yards. All right, 161. I'm actually surprised it picked that up being 22. Let's take a look at the hits on target. So obviously they're all there. It's a 22. It's not hard to shoot, but it is definitely fun to shoot. So this setup here has the Kanto Arms DL-44 muzzle device, and in my opinion, between this and their grip, these are two things that really make this setup. I love the way that this device works and looks. So I've tested this device on 5.56 firearms. It is aluminum, but I've tested on 5.56 firearms, and I'm up to 300 rounds with really no issue. So it is a stout device, and it looks really great. This setup, and I have run it on some AR setups, and I think it looks pretty cool on those as well. Over time, I've had a couple different optics on this setup. Now, obviously in the film, the DL-44 did use an offset scope. Now, that looks awesome. It is screen accurate, but not the ideal optic for this particular firearm, in my opinion. So I went with a 30mm red dot, which I still think gives you some of those scope vibes, but fits this a little bit better in my opinion. Now, this particular optic is an inexpensive Amazon special. It is a CV Life. I think it was about 30 bucks. And normally I would not spend money on a cheap, inexpensive red dot like that unless you're using it with a 22 long rifle. Typically with a 22, inexpensive red dots are going to be just fine. So this has worked great for me so far. It has 6 settings in both red and green. So I just run it in red, but if you wanted to run it in green, you could as well. The optic is fairly bright, bright enough. Uses a 2032, and it has your standard windage and elevation adjustments. I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera around and just give you a quick peek of what the optic looks like from my POV. All right, so you can see here, if I can get this to focus, there we go. So there's the red dot. It is plenty bright. I can even take some shots here, no problem. So yeah, that optic's plenty bright. That's on 6 on red, and now let's go 6 on green, and you can see it on green as well. So whatever flavor you desire, you can go ahead and use it with this little inexpensive CV Life off Amazon. And quick caveat to this optic setup, this riser I'm using is just a 30mm low mount from Primary Arms. This comes with a, I believe it's an Absolute Co-Witness mount, which I just swapped out for this Primary Arms. Keep it nice and low to the firearm, which on this particular setup works very well. I'm also running the Streamlight ProTac Rail Mount 1 on an HSP Thorntail Scout Light mount. And this is really nice if you want to go hunting wabbits or something along those lines. But it also works well if you need to kind of grip out a little further. It has that little added bonus for you there. So there it is, the DL-22E, aka the DL-44. Let me know what you thought about that down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.